My parents ordered me to give my car to my stepbrother for his new job, so I made sure they all got evicted when they found out I own every property they're living in. Let's make this moment special. Subscribe if you believe in stories like this and tell us your city in the comments below. I was scrubbing grease off my hands in the auto shop bathroom when my phone exploded with messages. Mom's name flashed across the screen 17 times. My stomach dropped the way it always did when she went into what I called family emergency mode, which usually meant someone wanted something from me. Gemma, you need to come home right now. Family meeting. Her voice was that fake sweet tone that set my teeth on edge. I'd just finished a double shift at Easton and Sons Auto Repair, where I'd worked since I was 16. Now 24, I was the lead diagnostic technician, pulling in decent money while taking night classes for my business degree. The drive to my parents' house, a sleek townhouse in the Riverside development, took 20 minutes. I remember thinking how the sunset looked angry that evening, all blood orange and bruised purple. The moment I walked through that door, I knew something was wrong. Mom sat perched on the cream leather sofa, the one I wasn't allowed to sit on in high school because I might ruin it with my work clothes. Dad stood by the fireplace, arms crossed. And there was Easton, my stepbrother, sprawled in Dad's favorite chair like he owned the place, smirking at his phone. Gemma, honey, sit down, Mom began, gesturing to the wooden dining chair they'd pulled into the living room. Not the sofa. Never the sofa. What's this about? I've got class in 2 hours. It's about being a family, Dad cut in, his voice already defensive. About helping each other out. Easton finally looked up, his grin widening. Yes, it's time for you to step up. That's when Mom dropped it. Easton got a job at Henderson Financial downtown. It's a wonderful opportunity, but he needs reliable transportation. We've decided you're going to give him your car. My 2021 Honda Accord. The car I'd saved 3 years to buy. The words hit me like a wrench to the skull. Excuse me. I couldn't have heard that right. Mom's smile didn't waver. Easton needs your car, sweetheart. His new position starts Monday and he can't be taking the bus. It's not professional. I take the bus, I said flatly. I've been taking the bus for 8 years. That's different, Dad interjected. Easton has a corporate job now. You work in a garage. The way he said garage made it sound like I cleaned sewers for a living. My jaw clenched so hard I thought my teeth might crack. Easton had been Dad's wife's son from her first marriage. When Dad married Paulette 5 years ago, Easton came as part of the package. 20 years old, no job, no ambition, just video games and excuses. I'd watched them baby him through 3 failed semesters at community college, 2 fired jobs for not being the right fit, and countless second chances I never got. When I was his age, I was working 50-hour weeks and paying my own rent because Dad said I needed to learn responsibility. You can't be serious, I said, looking at each of them. That's my car. I bought it. With money you made because your father gave you a place to stay during college, Paulette chimed in, speaking for the first time. She'd been silent in the corner, examining her manicured nails. Technically, you owe this family. My blood went cold. I'd paid rent during college. $500 a month for a converted basement with no windows and a space heater that barely worked. I had bank statements to prove it. I paid rent. Every month. Even when I was taking 18 credits. That wasn't real rent, Mom said dismissively. That was a token amount. Do you know what real rent costs in this city? Your father was subsidizing you. Easton laughed, actually laughed. Come on, Gemma. Don't be selfish. I need this opportunity. You can bike to work or whatever. It's 8 miles to the shop. Then you'll get exercise, Paulette said as if she'd solved world hunger. I stood up, keys gripping in my hand until the metal cut into my palm. No. This is insane. That's my car. Dad's face darkened. This is family, Gemma. This is family? I repeated, my voice rising despite myself. Where was family when I needed cosigners for student loans? Where was family when I was eating ramen for dinner 6 nights a week because I was saving for that car? Don't you raise your voice at me, Dad snapped, stepping forward. The familiar dance. Any pushback from me was disrespect. But Easton could do whatever he wanted. Mom stood up, her face pinched. Gemma Marie Stewart, we raised you better than this. Your stepbrother needs help and you're being incredibly selfish right now. After everything we've done for you. I actually laughed. A bitter, sharp sound that surprised even me. Everything you've done? You mean charging me rent while Easton lived here free? Making me work through high school while he got an allowance? What exactly have you done? We gave you a roof over your head, Paulette said coldly. We fed you, clothed you. Don't act like you're some Cinderella story. You're just ungrateful. The word hit like a slap. Ungrateful. I'd heard it my whole life, every time I didn't smile wide enough, thank them enthusiastically enough, sacrifice enough. Easton stood up, pocketing his phone. Look, I start Monday. Just give me the keys and we can all move on. It's not that deep. Not that deep. I turned to him, really looking at him. 25 years old, never held a job longer than 4 months, still living at home rent-free. You've never kept a job. What happens when you get fired in 2 months? Do I just never get my car back? He's not going to get fired, Mom said firmly. This is a real opportunity. His manager already loves him. He hasn't started yet. Dad moved closer, his voice dropping to that dangerous quiet. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to give Easton those keys. Tonight. Because if you don't, you're making a choice about what kind of daughter you want to be. The threat hung in the air between us. I'd heard variations of this my entire life. Be compliant or lose their love. Be grateful or be cut off. The manipulation was so familiar I could taste it. My hands shook as I held those keys. 24 years of trying to earn their approval flashed through my mind. Every perfect report card they barely acknowledged. Every award they didn't attend. Every moment I bent myself into smaller and smaller shapes trying to fit into their definition of a good daughter. Fine, I heard myself say. You want to know what kind of daughter I am? I'm the kind who's done. I threw the keys on the coffee table, not to Easton, not to them, just threw them and walked toward the door. Where are you going? Mom called. We're not finished. Yeah, we are. I turned back, my hand on the doorknob. Take the car. Take whatever you want. I'm out. You're being dramatic, Paulette said, rolling her eyes. He just needs the car for a few months until he can afford his own. Then he can take the bus like I did. Dad's voice thundered across the room. If you walk out that door without giving Easton proper access to that vehicle, don't bother coming back. You hear me? This family doesn't need your attitude. I looked at him, really looked at him, and saw a stranger. When had I last felt loved by these people? When had I last felt like more than a convenient source of labor or money or sacrifice? Okay, I said simply. Goodbye. I walked out. Behind me I heard Mom's shocked gasp, Easton's seriously, and Dad yelling something about respect. I didn't stop. I got into my car, for what I suspected might be the last time as its owner, and drove away. My phone started ringing before I reached the end of the street. I didn't answer. Instead, I drove to the one place I felt safe, the office of Bernard Hayes, my grandmother's lawyer. You see, my grandmother Nadine had died 18 months ago. And she'd left me something my parents knew nothing about. Something I'd kept secret because Gran made me promise to use it wisely when the time comes. I think that time had just arrived. Bernard Hayes had been Gran's attorney for 30 years. He looked exactly like I remembered, silver-haired, kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses, the kind of man who actually listened when you spoke. His office smelled like leather and old books, comfortable and safe. "Gemma," he greeted me warmly, rising from behind his mahogany desk. "I wondered when you'd come. Sit down, please." My grandmother had been the only person in my family who truly saw me. While my parents criticized and compared, Gran encouraged and believed. She'd been a real estate investor who'd built her portfolio from nothing, starting with a duplex in the 70s and expanding systematically over decades. "I need to know exactly what I inherited," I told Bernard, my voice steadier than I felt. "Everything. And I need to know if my father has any legal claim to it." Bernard smiled slightly. "Your father doesn't even know about it, does he?" "No. Gran made me promise not to tell anyone." He pulled out a thick folder. "Smart woman, your grandmother. She knew exactly what she was doing." He spread documents across the desk. "Gemma, you own 11 properties in this city. 7 residential units and 4 commercial spaces. Total current value, approximately $4.2 million. The number hit me like a physical force. $4 million. Your grandmother set up an LLC in your name when you turned 21. Everything's been professionally managed. The rental income goes into a trust account. You've been accumulating about $12,000 monthly after expenses and property management fees. That's been building for 3 years." My head spun. Why didn't she tell me? She did in her letter. "You were supposed to receive it on your 25th birthday." He handed me a cream envelope with my name in Gran's elegant handwriting. "But given that you're here now, I think circumstances have changed. Your grandmother left me instructions for various scenarios." My hands trembled as I opened the envelope. Gran's perfume still clung faintly to the paper. Lavender and vanilla. "My dearest Gemma, if you're reading this before your 25th birthday, something has pushed you to Bernard earlier than I planned. Knowing your father and that woman he married, I can guess what happened. They took something from you, didn't they? Or tried to make you small again. Baby girl, you are not small. You never were. I've watched your father treat you like a burden your whole life. I watched him choose his new family over you again and again. It broke my heart every time you smiled through it, trying so hard to earn love that should have been freely given. So I made sure you'd never have to beg for anything again. These properties are yours. All of them. But there's something you need to know. Something I made sure of because I know how these things work in families like ours. Your father lives in one of your properties. The Riverside townhouse. That's yours. So is the condo where your Aunt Michelle lives. And that little house Easton was looking at last month? Also yours. I bought them through shell companies over the years. Your father thinks he's renting from some corporate entity. He has no idea his mother owned them. Has no idea you now own them. Use this power wisely, baby. I'm not telling you to be cruel. But I am telling you to stop setting yourself on fire to keep them warm. You owe them nothing. You deserve everything. The world tried to make you believe you were the problem. You're not. You're the solution. All my love always, Gran." I read it 3 times, tears streaming down my face. Bernard quietly handed me tissues. "She knew," I whispered. "She knew exactly what they were." "Nadine was exceptionally perceptive," Bernard agreed. "Now let's talk about your options. You own the property at 847 Riverside Drive, where your father currently lives. His lease is managed through Cornerstone Property Management, one of the companies under your LLC structure. He's actually 2 months behind on rent." "He's behind $1,600. The management company has been lenient, but they were about to start eviction proceedings." My mind raced. What about Easton? Gran's letter mentioned a house he was looking at. Bernard flipped through papers. 285 Oakmont Street. Small 2-bedroom. Easton signed a lease 3 weeks ago. First month paid, but he hasn't paid this month's rent yet. It's due in 5 days. The pieces clicked together in my head like a perfectly diagnosed engine problem. I want to see all the properties I own, I told Bernard. Every single one. And I want to know who's living in them. He printed out a comprehensive list. As I read through it, my breath caught. Not only did I own my parents' townhouse and Easton's new rental, but I also owned the duplex my Aunt Michelle lived in, Dad's sister. A condo Paulette's mother rented. The commercial space where Dad's buddy Jerome ran his barbershop. 3 other residential properties with tenants I didn't know. 2 commercial spaces leased to a coffee shop and a boutique. 1 vacant lot Gran had apparently been holding for development. Bernard, what are the terms of their leases? Standard 1-year agreements. Month to month after that. Your father's lease has been month to month for 2 years. Easton just signed his. Michelle has been in her place for 6 months. He looked at me carefully. What are you thinking? I'm thinking about Gran's advice. About not setting myself on fire anymore. I met his eyes. Can they evict me from the family for owning property? He smiled. A real proud smile. No, Gemma. They can't. You're a landlord conducting business. Everything has been legal and properly documented for years. Your grandmother made absolutely certain of that. Then here's what I want to do. I leaned forward. I want to remain anonymous as the owner. Keep everything running through the LLC and management company. But I want you to start enforcing the lease terms. All of them. Strictly. That means late fees for your father. Good. It means if Easton doesn't pay next month's rent, eviction proceedings begin. Perfect. Bernard studied me for a long moment. Your grandmother would be proud of you right now. But I have to ask, are you sure? Families can be vindictive when money and power shift. I thought about that demand for my car. About years of being treated like I was less than. About Easton's smirk and Paulette's dismissive tone and Dad's threat. Let them be vindictive, I said. I'm done being their doormat. The next week was chaos. My phone exploded with messages. 37 from Mom, 15 from Dad, dozens from numbers I didn't recognize. I ignored them all. Instead, I focused on the revelation that had turned my world upside down. I was a landlord. A property owner. Financially independent. I met with the property management company, Cornerstone, and learned they'd been excellent stewards of Gran's investments. The residential properties were well maintained, tenants were generally reliable, and the commercial spaces were profitable. Ms. Stewart, the manager, a sharp-eyed woman named Keisha Martinez, told me, your grandmother built an impressive portfolio. These properties are in prime locations. The Riverside development alone has appreciated 40% since she purchased it. Tell me about 847 Riverside Drive. My father's place. Keisha pulled up the file. Ezra Stewart. 2 months late, as Mr. Hayes mentioned. We've sent notices, but he keeps promising payment is coming. To be honest, we were about to proceed with formal eviction notice this week. Do it, I said. Follow the legal process exactly. And 285 Oakmont Street? Easton Stewart. Monitor it closely. The moment he's late, start the process. Keisha nodded approvingly. Business is business. Your grandmother taught me that. Meanwhile, I'd moved into a beautiful 1-bedroom apartment I owned in the Arts District. A unit that had just opened up. Hardwood floors, exposed brick, big windows. I'd walked past buildings like this my whole life, never imagining I could live in one. My car situation resolved itself when I simply reported it stolen. The police found it parked at my parents' house. Easton tried to claim I'd given it to him, but without any written agreement or title transfer. Legally it was still mine. The look on his face when the cops made him hand over the keys was almost worth everything. Almost. The real satisfaction came 3 days later when Dad called me from an unknown number. "Gemma, we need to talk. Now." "About what?" "About you calling the cops on your brother. About this insane behavior. You're tearing this family apart." I waited a beat. "Is that all? Is that?" he sputtered. "No. You need to apologize to Easton and return that car like we agreed." "We didn't agree to anything. You demanded." "I refused." "That's not an agreement." The formal eviction notice arrived at 847 Riverside Drive on a Tuesday morning. I know because Mom called me 43 times that day. On the 44th call I finally answered. "What the hell is this?" she screamed before I could say hello. "We're being evicted? This is your fault. You did this somehow." "I literally have no idea what you're talking about." "Don't play dumb, Gemma. This company, Cornerstone Property Management, they're saying we're 2 months behind on rent. But we've always paid. This is because of what happened with the car." "Mom, I don't own your house. I don't work for a property management company. You're behind on rent? Pay your rent." "We tried. They're saying the checks bounced." That was news to me. I made a mental note to call Keisha. "Then maybe talk to your bank instead of calling me." "This is your grandmother's fault," she hissed. "That woman poisoned you against us. Filled your head with ideas about being independent and strong. Look where that got you, alone and spiteful." Something cold settled in my chest. Gran was the only person who ever actually loved me. And yeah, she taught me not to let people use me. I'm grateful for that. "You're going to regret this," Mom said, her voice dropping to something dangerous. "Family is everything and you just threw yours away over a car. Over selfishness." "No, I threw away people who only wanted me around to take from me. That's not family. That's exploitation." I hung up. My hands were shaking, but not from fear, from adrenaline, from power, from finally saying what I'd needed to say for years. Bernard called 20 minutes later. "Your father just contacted Cornerstone claiming fraud. He's demanding to know who owns the property." "Can they tell him?" "Not without your permission. The LLC structure protects you. But Gemma, he's going to figure it out eventually. Let him." I was surprised by how calm I felt. "What's the timeline on the eviction?" "They have 30 days to pay in full including late fees or they're out. Easton's rent is due in 2 days. Want to bet he doesn't pay?" "I'll take that bet," I said, smiling. Easton didn't pay his rent. 5 days later, Keisha called me personally. "Your stepbrother showed up at our office today. Made quite a scene. Tell me everything." He claimed his family emergency gave him the right to delay payment. When we explained late fees and lease terms, he demanded to speak to the owner. Said his father had connections and would ruin us. She laughed dryly. "We informed him the owner is an LLC and all communications go through us. He threatened to sue. Let him try." But the real explosion came from Aunt Michelle. She called me that night, her voice tight with anger. "Gemma, I don't know what you said to your father, but he's convinced you're behind some conspiracy to destroy the family." "Hi, Aunt Michelle. I'm fine, thanks for asking. How are you?" She ignored my sarcasm. "He's saying someone is targeting the family through housing. First him, then Easton. He thinks you're connected somehow because of the timing." My aunt and I had never been particularly close. She'd always taken Dad's side in everything, the loyal little sister defending her brother's choices no matter how wrong they were. "That's paranoid," I said carefully. "I'm a mechanic, not a real estate mogul." "Are you, though?" Her voice held a strange note. Your grandmother died 18 months ago. Nadine had property. Where did it all go? My stomach dropped. I don't know what you mean. Don't lie to me. I know Nadine left you something. She told me before she died. Said she was making sure you'd be taken care of. Said you deserved better than what Ezra gave you. Michelle's voice cracked slightly. I didn't realize she meant. Gemma, do you own my duplex? Silence stretched between us. I could lie. Should lie probably. But I was so tired of lying, of hiding, of making myself small. Yes, I said simply. Oh my God. I heard her sit down heavily. Does Ezra know? Not yet. Gemma, he's going to lose his mind. The townhouse too. Yes. And Easton's place? Yes. Michelle was quiet for so long I thought she'd hung up. Then, good. What? I said good. Her voice was stronger now. Your father has been an entitled ass his whole life. And that stepbrother of yours is worse. Maybe this is exactly what they need. You're not mad. Am I mad that my mother left her properties to her granddaughter instead of her children? Maybe a little. She laughed bitterly. The family meeting happened at a neutral location. A Denny's on Highway 47 of all places. Dad had demanded it and Aunt Michelle had convinced me to go. Let him have his say, she'd advised. Then you can walk away knowing you gave him a chance. I arrived 15 minutes late on purpose, my power move. They were all there. Dad, Paulette, Easton, even Paulette's mother Linda, who I'd met maybe 3 times in 5 years. They sat in a booth looking like a tribunal, faces grim. Glad you could join us, Dad said acidly. I slid into a chair at a separate table, forcing them to turn around to face me. You said you wanted to talk. So talk. Easton leaned forward. We know what you did. I've done a lot of things. Be specific. Don't play games, Paulette snapped. We know you own the properties. We know you're trying to evict us out of spite. The accusation hung in the air. I could have denied it. Should have probably maintained the corporate shield a bit longer. But I was done hiding. You're half right, I said calmly. I do own the properties. But I'm not evicting you out of spite. I'm evicting you for not paying rent. That's called business. Dad's face went purple. You little, how long have you known that I owned them? About 2 weeks. That Gran left me property? 18 months. And you said nothing. Mom's voice was shrill. You let us think we were safe, secure in our home, and all along you were plotting. Plotting what? To be your landlord? To collect rent you agreed to pay. I looked at each of them. You've been living in my property for 3 years. You were fine with it when you thought some corporation owned it. What's different now? What's different is you're using it as a weapon, Dad said, his voice dangerous and low. You're punishing us because you didn't get your way with the car. I laughed, genuinely laughed. The car. You still think this is about a car, isn't it? Easton challenged. No, Easton. It's about years of being treated like I was worthless. It's about being told to sacrifice again and again while you got handed everything. It's about my father threatening to disown me for not giving up something I worked 3 years to buy. I leaned forward. The car was just the moment I realized I was done being your family punching bag. You ungrateful, Paulette started, but I cut her off. Don't call me ungrateful. I paid my rent here. I worked through high school and college. I put myself through mechanic training. Everything I have I earned. You want to talk about grateful? Where's Easton's gratitude for 5 years of free housing? Where's your gratitude, Dad, for Gran buying that townhouse and renting it to you below market value? Dad's face went white. Below market? Oh, you didn't know? I smiled coldly. Gran charged you $2,000 a month for a place that should rent for $3,500. He subsidized you for years. And you still couldn't pay on time. How dare you, Mom whispered. Nadine had no right. She had every right. They were her properties. Now they're mine. And I'm running them as businesses, not charities. So that's it. Aunt Michelle's mother Linda spoke for the first time, her voice sharp. You're throwing your own family out on the street? No. I'm asking them to honor legal agreements they signed. Pay rent on time, follow lease terms, and we have no problem. Treat me like a landlord instead of an ATM. Easton stood up suddenly. This is bullshit. I'm not paying you rent. You're my sister. Stepsister. And yes, you will. Or you'll find somewhere else to live. We'll sue you, Dad threatened. Undue influence on your grandmother. Manipulation. She wasn't in her right mind. She was sharp as a tack until the day she died, and you know it. You have no case. I stood up too, done with this conversation. Here's what's going to happen. You have 30 days to pay everything you owe, including late fees. Easton, you have 23 days to pay your rent or vacate. Aunt Michelle gets to stay because she actually pays on time. What about my mother? Paulette demanded. I'd forgotten about Linda's property. I pulled out my phone, checking the file Keisha had sent. Your mother lives in the West Side condo. Her lease is current, rent paid through next month. She's fine. Unless she stops paying too. This is insane, Mom said, tears streaming down her face now. You're destroying this family over money. Over pride. No, Mom. You destroyed this family when you treated me like a servant instead of a daughter. When you chose Easton over me every single time. When you demanded I sacrifice my car, my property, because being family only counts when you need something from me. The words I'd held back for years poured out like oil from a cracked engine, dark and necessary. They didn't pay. Of course they didn't. Dad tried to negotiate, offered $1,000 and a promise to work out a payment plan. Easton simply disappeared, leaving his apartment trashed with 2 months of unpaid rent. Paulette called me crying, begging, trying to guilt me into stopping the evictions. I held firm. The legal process took another 30 days. During that time, Dad tried to turn the whole family against me. Cousins I barely knew called to tell me I was cruel. Church members from the congregation my parents attended left concerned messages about forgiveness and family unity. But Aunt Michelle stood by me. Your grandmother knew exactly what she was doing, she told me over coffee one morning. She gave you the power to protect yourself. Use it. The day Dad and Paulette moved out of the Riverside townhouse, I wasn't there. I was at work, elbows deep in a transmission rebuild, when Keisha called to confirm they'd vacated. The property needed cleaning and minor repairs. Nothing major, nothing vengeful. Just normal wear and tear. Easton's place was worse. Holes in walls, carpet destroyed, unpaid utilities. I took him to small claims court and won, though I'll probably never see that money. Some lessons cost more than others. 6 months later, I'm sitting in my arts district apartment, Grand's letter framed on my wall. The properties are thriving. I've learned more about real estate management in half a year than I ever thought possible. I hired a financial advisor, started reinvesting profits, even bought another small commercial property. My parents occasionally send messages through relatives. She'll forgive us eventually. Family is family. She'll realize she needs us. But they're wrong. I don't need them. I never did. I just needed to realize I didn't need them. Last week I got a text from an unknown number. Easton, probably from a burner phone. Hope you're happy now. You destroyed everything. I looked at that message for a long time. Then I typed back, you destroyed nothing. I built everything. There's a difference. Then I blocked the number and went back to my life. My real life, the one where I'm not small, not grateful for scraps, not setting myself on fire to keep others warm. Graham was right. I wasn't the problem. I was the solution. And I'm finally free.